one most important and bold commitment of the church. It is a stand against violence towards men, women, and children. Our aim today is to raise awareness and explore how we as a church family can work together to end this crisis, not only in our communities, but also within the walls of the church. We need to acknowledge that we are not immune to this. We also can be abusers and we can be abused. So today is not a counseling session, neither is it to investigate what has been wrong. This year, the church has decided to collaborate with women ministries and AMO and lead the program. We want to recognize that every single person in this room matters, and the fight against abuse, and to affirm that the power of the Adventist men is no to abuse. So today we tackle the real issues, clarify the role of the church, understand what's expected by us, the authorities, and ultimately stand together against abuse. So, today our Sabbath school will be different. It will be a panel discussion and provide a few expertise in the different roles that we have. So I'll ask them to just introduce themselves and then we'll start the discussion.
Happy Sabbath Church. My name is Joe Khosi and I'm representing the legal seat in this panel.
Happy Sabbath Church. My name is Naina Maponga. I'm a clinical social worker and I also support people with any emotional or mental challenge. Thank you.
Happy Sabbath Church. My name is Mupele Moyo. I am going to be representing the young adults in the Adventist Church. I have an interest in abuse and mental health issues, hence I'm taking this seat. Thank you.
Good morning, church. Mina representa Sabbath.
Right, and I'm Willie, the moderator. To make sure that they don't go over time, that they don't mention names, that they are biblical, there must be biblical reference as well, right? Right. So a bit of ground rules, right? So number one, please don't mention anybody's names. Don't speak about people in the church, no families, or any living or dead person. Speak about the patterns and not the person. Nothing said in this room should be repeated outside with a name attached to it. Right? You have 2 minutes to answer a question. I will interrupt you to say your time is up. I'm not being rude, I'm just time. Right? And then this is not a counseling session, but if you do need somebody to speak to, we do have counselors and psychologists on site. We have Antonella and we have Sis Kabiso who are willing to go outside and speak to you and give you more counseling. And then if you disagree with an idea, which is normal, please don't cross-examine other persons, don't cross-examine them, just disagree. And then I'm going to ask you questions. We did speak on the side, so we prepared for these questions, right? But keep it within the 2 minutes. And then, if you do feel like you need to speak to the pastor or anything, I need you to understand that if it involves a child, according to the Children's Act of Act 28 of 2000, Section 110, we are obligated to speak to the police because a child is involved. So if you do speak to Khaliso and Antomega and it is abuse to a child, we have to report it. Right? So, with that being said, also with the Criminal Act, if somebody has been sexually abused or any offense has been committed, we will report it. We are not going to keep quiet. And that's the point of the state, to say, end it now. Right? We're not trying to keep it within the walls. We're trying to make sure that it is a safe space for children, for women, for men, and everybody else. Right? So, if you do have any questions or anything to say, please do come back in the afternoon where we'll have a discussion more based on this topic. So now we're just going to have a discussion amongst the 5 of us. And then if you do have a question that is to any of them, please approach them in the afternoon because that's the point of the program. So this is just to introduce everything, and then in the afternoon didn't have a Q&A, basically, right? With that being said, we shall begin. When we say abuse, what is the first thing that comes to mind? So we'll start with the pastor. When we speak about abuse, most people think it is a bruise, a beating. What is abuse to you?
Thank you very much. Well, at face value, when we hear the word abuse, a lot of times we are thinking about a scar that we say blue eye. A lot of times, sometimes we think about someone shouting, but there are quite a number of things that we may not see, but that may be prevalent to many people, even in our church community. Number one, if a woman has to first look at the husband's face before she says something, that's abuse there. Right there. That's a problem right there. So that could be one form that cannot be seen by many people, but be known and experienced by the person who is going through that. Now, number two, if a woman has a bank card and there is money there, but she can't use without explaining why and what for, then there is abuse. That's another form of abuse, because abuse can be physical, it could be emotional, and so it just depends on one's experience. Now, abuse also can come in a home where a hand has never been lifted to anybody. Abuse can also come with the Bible open at 11 o'clock at night. Now, this is the man who is trying to reteach this woman how to be submissive without raising a hand. And she ends up agreeing to something that she knows it is wrong, but just for the sake of getting along, and she agrees with it. And after a while, that wrong becomes a no. And that's what abuse can be.
Guys, as a young person, what is abuse?
Thank you. I'm going to speak on behalf of the young adults. And like the pastor has already said, sometimes we often say that abuse is about bruises, but there's a lot of emotional abuse that also happens. Now, from the perspective of a young person, I just want to highlight a few issues. Number one being that young people are very particular about the way they are viewed. So one form of abuse that we find amongst the young people is that of body shaming. It has become so prevalent in the church, in our families, in our homes, in our workplaces, where we are expected to look a certain way. And then if you don't meet those particular standards that society has deemed to be the actual best standards, then a young person can experience body shaming, and that in actual fact becomes abuse in itself. So it's very important for us to be careful how we talk about other people, how they look, and how we make them feel. And then the other thing that's there in young people is gaslighting, whether in relationships or in just a friendly setup. Gaslighting is actually when you make someone begin to question their own sanity with the things that you say. If I'm feeling a certain way about someone and we're having a conversation and I try to express myself, and the other person, the abuser, then comes to nullify everything that you've said or how you actually feel. So that on its own, you cannot trace it back to say, okay, I've been bruised this way, but the fact that this person feels that their expression or how they feel is not valid enough, that in its own is also abuse. There are many ways. Again, another way is that there's constant need in a relationship setup, there's constant need of explaining yourself. Where are you? What are you doing? That in itself is also abuse. So people need to be free, people need to be able to express themselves and be where they want to be at any given point in time. Thank you.
From a social worker perspective, what is abuse? So if I come to you and I say I've been abused, how would you define it?
And before I answer your question, as a social worker, I would like to acknowledge that this topic is very sensitive. And some people might find it disturbing and overwhelming. Like the moderator has been saying, we have systems in place for you to support you. What is abuse? When you talk about abuse, it's misuse of power, trust, and vulnerability. Now I'm also looking at the children. What is abuse? We have young kids here. When a parent fails to provide the basic needs of a child, that's abuse. And parental responsibilities. What's your part of the child? That's abuse. And I want to go a little bit further because the pastor is already attached and my colleague is already touched on the types of abuse. I also want to go further and say, what does this abuse do to a person? Abuse has a holistic effect on the person. It affects the physical health, the mood, the mind, confidence, and the person's sense of God. A person starts to ask, where is God? Where is my God?
Yeah.
That's what abuse does.
From a legal perspective, what is abuse and how do we then report it, or how do we then go further from it?
So the word abuse is a legal term on its own. We are talking about abuse because the law has defined it based on what happens. But I just want to quickly say, I think I am fortunate because my position right now is just to summarize what every panelist has said. The question was, when we talk abuse, we always picture bruises and everything as the pastor has put it. And the question is, what is it that we do not picture? So we do not picture a diminished sense of self-worth. We do not picture it. And it is caused by insults, humiliation, belittling remarks, and relentless criticism. So we think some of these things are normal, but they are actually an abuse. We do not picture fear and anxiety. We do not picture it created by threats, intimidation, coercion, emotional manipulation, sometimes even spiritual manipulation.
Yeah.
Sometimes even spiritual manipulation. Excessive dependency, we do not picture it. It is unhealthy for someone to depend on someone excessively. This can be caused by financial or economic exclusion of sort, which then restricts person's ability to make independent decisions. We do not picture vulnerability and insecurity arising from neglect, arising from abandonment, and so forth and so forth. But there's this another one, the loss of freedom and autonomy. Sometimes you would have a friend all this time, wait until they are married. Now they cannot have friendships, they cannot have relationships, they cannot meet anywhere, they cannot be anywhere. It is only normal for this person to be with a partner at all times. So those are red flags that you are not even to meet, other people. You are not even there. They are possessive. They are controlling. They want you there. So there are limits in each and everything. So those are the things that importantly we really need to look into. How do you go about dealing with abuse? You can go to the South African police station to open a case, or you can go to the magistrate court to then seek protection order. I don't know if should I deal with the whole process or you give me an opportunity later.
I will give you an opportunity. Alright. So, next question would be, what is the difference between a difficult marriage and an abusive marriage? People in the church can be united and can hold against their families. Anybody want to start with that?
Yeah, probably just one more thing, then I'm going to come to this question. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
What I found I found also very interesting is that in line with what my learned friend here said, the Domestic Violence Act has now, as it was recently amended, a portion that says spiritual abuse. All right, has spiritual abuse now. And this is in the law because when does this happen? When is this thing defined as spiritual abuse? When you use your religion to take away someone's constitutional right or freedom to express himself or herself in whatever way, that's spiritual abuse. And so sometimes I know when we talk about these things, we never think that abuse can also be of a spiritual nature. Now you asked the question about a difficult marriage, an abusive marriage. When the marriage is difficult, two people are dealing with an issue. But when the marriage is abusive, it's one person driving the system. That's the difference between the two. All right, it's two people when it's difficult that are having to find a solution of a problem. But if it's an abusive, it's one person who has established his system that he controls, and the other one is just a receiver of this system.
You want to add to that?
I think the pastor is basically covered. Difficult is two people disagreeing or poor communication. That's a difficult marriage. Then in abusive marriage, it's now one person in control, and it's now the traits, what we call the patterns. What is key and what is important, the difference between the two is the pattern. Now this person controls the marriage, and there are repeated patterns of intimidating, threats, and so on.
No, I think she really covers it there to say the signs are control, dominance, and everything. But before maybe, I just want to be a little bit out of order. I just want to touch base on that spiritual kind of thing quickly to say a quick example of it sometimes is if at home I then want to control my wife how she dresses. I want to dictate to the family what they are going to eat, that we no longer eat meat, we are going to eat all those kind of things. Those things can literally fall within the lines of spiritual manipulation, spiritual abuse.
I wanted to add that an abusive marriage sometimes can go on for so long, and you cannot, unless someone actually says it, sometimes you're not able to actually tell that there is a problem there. So it's definitely a cause for concern, especially in the church, because people can be worshiping together, they are participating in church, doing everything together, and yet one or actually both are abused in marriage.
Okay, so coercion, right, is something that we've learned recently, gaslighting and so forth, right? So what does coercion look like in our day-to-day lives, right? And in home, like, what is coercion?
My understanding of coercion is a form of control.
Okay.
In our day-to-day lives, we are in this situation. It's just an example where a wife asks the husband or the other way around for one's passwords, even checking where are you, your car was parked in Saddle City, now I see you are in this place. It's a form of control. And like he said, you want to control even the type of dressing. You want to control what people are going to eat. You even control the church activities. You are not going, this week you are not going to the Dorcas function. That's coercion. You are not going to the Dorcas function. And who said you should go in front of the church? Tell me your time or you bow in. And that's a church context.
So you're saying coercion is basically forcing, pressurizing, intimidating, and controlling the way one does something.
Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes it can happen subtly. It
Yes,
doesn't
subtly.
always have to be forceful. Sometimes it's
Give us an
emotional manipulation and all those kind of
Give us an
things.
example.
I mean, are those examples where we are saying, if you do this thing, then I won't do this, or why do you do this thing to me? I mean, I make you feel bad when you have to do that which you want to do. So I want to guilt trip you. Guilt tripping is part and parcel of conversion.
And while on that, from the young people, we're in a social media era, everything is digitalized. One example of coercion is when a partner in a relationship will actually say, okay, I noticed that you posted such a picture. Can I see who liked your pictures? Be it on Instagram stories, on Facebook, on your WhatsApp, they actually want to see who's engaging with you, who's interested in.
You should follow that person.
Yes, are you following that person? So we see it a lot in young people, and it's damaging in the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, coercion also can appear where it looks like a shrinking house. Now we got married, you had X amount of friends, and over time, all of them are no longer part of your life. Your sister is a very difficult person to be with. Your friends are a bad influence. Being with women is just a group of gossipers. And so at the end, you are left alone with your husband, with whom you are not getting along well with. That's how sometimes coercion looks like.
Okay. Can I just add something on coercion?
Yeah.
Especially on the young people. Of course, we don't expect to see this necessarily in the Adventist church, but we see it in the world where there is pressure to share pictures. People are in a relationship, they share pictures, maybe private pictures. Like I said, we don't expect to see it in the young people of our church, but we see it. And then when this coercion comes, this person is now making threats saying, I will publish this. So that's another form of abuse. Or if someone just has information about you, and they can actually use that against you and say, okay, I threaten you if you do this or you don't do this, then I'll also publish this information about you.
Right. To young people, right? So back to you, Ted. What does it look like among young people under 30, right? That are in relationships but not marriage, right? So for instance, sharing your locations or finding my phone, pressure for the images, and the threats of sharing. So what else would you say? Give us more examples so that as young people we can look for those red flags, right? And not make them orange and then now become clean. You know?
Okay, I think yes, we've already touched pretty much on that there is a lot of pressure in the young people in abusive relationships to share location. I want to know where you are, I want to know what you're doing at any given point in time. That is not normal. Everybody has the right and the freedom to express themselves, to be where they want to be. Of course, any other normal relationship has got, guidelines, regulations and all, but a young person has to look out for those things. How much pressure is this person putting to know where I am, what I'm doing? They want to get into my socials to understand who am I talking to, and things like that. So it's very important to just be aware of those things.
So you say we shouldn't share our Instagram passwords, TikTok passwords?
Well, I think the legal expert can say.
With sharing our passwords to our Instagram with our partners, should we do it or not?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of choice, but one thing is certainly you do have a right to refuse to give it. You are not obliged.
Alright. So, to the social worker, why do people stay in abusive marriages, relationships, friendships, and the question would be, why do they stay? And do they ask for it? Somebody will say, maybe I was wearing a short skirt, or maybe I was saying hit me, So why do people normally stay?
Why do people stay? People stay because of fear of retaliation. The person will be, how will the offender react? Is he going to hurt me? Shame is also another aspect. People feel like this is going to embarrass me. Then we have the issue of financial independence, housing independence. And children, you'll be asking yourself, will I manage? Will I be able to cope? Then there's also love, and the love is in two dimensions. Love is in, oh, I've come a long way. And this language of yours, the young ones, you were a child with sweethearts. I can't just walk out of this marriage. And love is like not understanding, I mean, the meaning attached to love, not understanding what love is. You see someone saying, oh, he loves me, that's why he controls me. He even beats me. They think if the husband beats them, it's love, so they stay. And also there is what we call hope. What is hope? When you talk of hope, you end up in this cycle, what we call cycle of abuse. What does hope do? You take the phone, your sister is on the phone, my husband has done 1, 2, 3, 4. She's a human, she's a person. She starts to empathize with you. Oh, I hear you, I hear you. Then you start negotiating and discussing safety plans or what I call escape plans. And the next day, your husband comes. This time now, before you even escape, like you're discussing with your sister, he comes and goes down on his knees. This time it's not the wedding ring, because you have the ring already. It's the key cards, the Range Rover, the Jeep G-Wagon. Or now suddenly your perspective, because you are hoping it will change, and your perspective changes now. It's now he's a good man. You call again your aunt, your uncle, your sister. He's a good man. He has changed. He has paid my young brother's tuition fees, talked my mother's groceries, and guess what? My next birthday is in Dubai. No problem, no this. Wow. Then what happens? 3 to 4 months along, that's all. That's why people stay. 3 to 4 months down the line, he starts again. Wow. What do? You are crying. Should I call again my sister? Should I call again my uncle? Maybe I should try my aunt is better. You call your aunt. The man they started again. And now you use big words. He's a monster. He's a monster. But your aunt, because now last time he empathized with, is now saying that I'm sorry, what can he do? What can she do? It's just I'm sorry. And you are now stuck in that situation. That's what hope does. And we also have what we call significant others. You call your mom. This time you call your mom. Oh, I can't do this anymore. What is it, my daughter? He's doing 1, 2, 3, 4. And your mom says, that's very normal. Marriages are like that. And I want to go, just have time. And I want to go a little bit further.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Why disclosure is delayed? It is delayed because people lack ways. They don't even know how to start. The actual ways how to start the conversation that I'm being abused. And some people are groomed into secrecy. If you tell my mom, meaning his mother, or any of your siblings, I will damage you. And that's the big word to you. And as also when our school people will use the Oxford Dictionary, when you hear about damage, it's a verb. He was going to do something. So you imagine, is he going to cut my legs and I'll remain in the wheelchair? And maybe I'll go further.
I'll give you time.
I'll go and talk about the recovery in this abuse. Is recovery possible?
Yeah, people get it.
Yes, recovery is possible, but it is linear. What do I mean? It's like a ruler. It's not like a ruler. Unless it's not like a ruler that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 10, 15, 20. What we are interested in here is that we lessen the danger. So what happens is providing a safe space so that that person does not feel vulnerable or fragmented. Then also referring that person to professional support like social workers, our pastors, psychologists. So what we are saying today is basically you can rewrite your story, you can reauthor your narrative to a more empowering story. Thank you.
Yeah. So, for me, my observation is that marriage is generally considered by the society to be a failure. That is why, sorry, not marriage, the divorce or living a relationship is generally considered to be a failure by the society. That is why in the society you'll find terms like calling people who have come back from marriages returned soldiers and all those kind of things. And because these things then are considered in a very negative connotation, it then contributes to the difficulty for people to really make decisions quicker to then leave these marriages. But there's also a spiritual aspect to it, where we are confusing spirituality with the appearance of perfection. Because whatever bad things that are happening in my life are always going to be seen by others as a reflection of my personal and spiritual life. You know, it's always like those who are prayerful, those who are really having a close proximity to God would not be befallen by these things. These things are happening to those that they must check their lives and everything. So, because of that, there is a fear of judgment that they're going to judge. There is a fear of disappointing the church and the family, because our mothers are very proud when we get married and everything, and they go around breaking and everything, and all those kind of things. So it's a whole lot of things that contribute to people trying to make this thing work, and when it's not, and it's abusive and everything. Some are feeling to tarnish in the name or reputation of the church and so forth and so forth. So those are some of the things that make it difficult for people to really talk about this abuse and to leave the relationships of marriages like those.
Okay, so the other reason why people stay is a religious one. Well, he's a church elder. What will the church say if I leave? The other reason why women will stay like that, because they are thinking in their mind, there is a culture in the church over time that says, if you report him, we will take his side. And she has watched this before, because things have happened and the church did nothing. And she says, look, it's a waste of time. Even if I go to report, nothing will happen, because the matter will be taken to that very committee where he belongs. And it will die there, and they will take his side. And so those are some, so in other words, sometimes we have a church culture that perpetuates abuse.
So Buddhists are basically saying that you shouldn't take it to church board.
No. When you are abused, and this is what we want to make sure is clear in this church. When I talk about this in detail in the afternoon, that your first point of contact should not be the church board. Unless you want to kill your thing. You can kill it if you want to. But we will tell you what options do you have. Also, depending on the severity of your situation, we will also try to empower one another. What options are there for all of us?
Alright. Bring it into the Adventist space, right? So why is it so difficult for us to tell the church about abuse, or somebody in the church that you're being abused?
Can I just take that one? I think we also have a dilemma of our own church procedure. The pastor has already mentioned that we'll talk about it in the afternoon, but church procedure also, because if I have a situation and I come here ordinarily, maybe I talk to the head deaconess or just a deaconess, who will then tell the head deaconess, who will then take it to the deacon's board, who they will then take it to the elders' council, and then eventually it will get to the church board. And peradventure, even the abuser himself or herself is actually in these boards and committees and so on. So the process on its own is a very lengthy process for you to actually eventually get the justice that you're actually looking for. The process is long, And there's the issue that sometimes we don't want to tarnish the name of the church, depending, of course, on the extent of the abuse. Some things may eventually get, this happened and now it's in the papers and the name of the church is at stake and things like that. So it's definitely something to consider, the name of the church.
Well, sometimes, often is because I don't want so many people to know about my things in church. So I think that is the biggest contributor. Like she says, you're going to have to tell so many people. The church board now, I think the church business or something, it becomes something that is known by everyone here and everything. So that can be a discouraging factor as well to come to the church.
I guess the other thing, as good as it sounds, but the enemy is the word reconciliation. Because people know that sometimes if you report, the first place the church will go to is reconciliation, which should not be the case. Because reconciliation, if you start a reconciliation, you are covering the soiled wound. You are not dealing with the issue. Reconciliation will come later when we have dealt with, because a person can reconcile for the sake of his stature. But the same behavior will resurface a few months down the line. But if we have a practice as a church that says we get down to the issue, and when it has been dealt with, because the person, for example, may be in need of anger management. Yeah, this person may be having anger issues that need to be taken care of. So reconciliation is going to fix anger. We need to find a way to deal with the baggage that this person has, that he brought into this marriage. Because once you do that, that person is truly ready now to reconcile with his wife.
Okay, so the statements like submit to your husband, God hates divorce, forgive 77 times 7, do not bring shame to the church, right? Why do these things, what do they do to the person who wants to get counseling, right? And then what is it in the faithful way? So when I say, God, my Bible or the rules of the church are this, how do we then work around these things? With the submit to your husband, God hates divorce. On a legal aspect.
Can I say something? I think that actually before the abuse happens, the church members should be empowered, from the youth to the older people, empowered to make decisions on their own. Because like you're saying, there's a lot of voices. There's the Bible, there is the church expectations, there is family, there is friends. But once you're empowered to say, okay, when I put all this together, I can still make my decision and know that this is abuse and I'm not going to stand for it or tolerate it. So it's very important to empower, especially the young people, to make their own decision and stand by them.
And in my view, those verses need to really be read in a proper context. We need to approach them with what we call a purposive interpretation, looking at what its interpretation is. It is in the context of people that love one another and everything, where there is absolutely no abuse. There's no coercion, there's absolutely no such things. So I am the one who says there's absolutely nothing wrong with those verses and church processes. And even to the extent that the pastor has spoken about reconciliation. We can still entertain reconciliation without necessarily taking away other people's rights. Where we simply make you understand that, look, justice has to prevail, these things need to be addressed as the perpetrator, and encouraging the victim that at the end of the day, you need to take steps that will seek to protect your well-being and so forth and so forth. Now, those verses that submit to your husband and everything are not at odds or contradictory to Micah when he says, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly and everything. They are not. So they are in harmony, we must just find the balance.
Just to add a bit, one saying like there should be a balance. People should understand the Bible verses and what abuse is. It's like people often think Adventist homes or Christians are immune to abuse. No, abuse is abuse. So what happens usually, there's a confusion between submission and obedience to abuse. So there should be a clear distinction between submission, the biblical submission, and obedience to abuse.
Yeah. You know, sometimes we use this, looking at verse 22 here of Ephesians 5. But people forget that you have verse 21 before verse 22. Because verse 21 says, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. That's mutual. Because if that exists, then there will be no issues of even us talking about submission, because it becomes an automatic thing. So if verse 21 has not been activated, practiced in the marriage, then you're going to have problems with verse 22 and the following verses, because thereafter Paul speaks 3 times about women's submission, but 9 times about men. So that balance you were talking about, it's important here. We must not pick that which favors us in the time of the conversation. So let us remember, if once you have an issue, a conversation between the two of you about verse 22, you must know you have a problem with verse 21. Because if you are mutual submitting to one another, there are no issues with verse 22 and the following.
So, what happens in a congregation where a person accused holds office? Who protects him? What happens in a congregation when a person accused holds office? So it's an elder, it's a pastor. Who protects him?
Yeah. So, if for example, I am the issue, you don't bring that matter here, because I'm sharing that matter. Maybe my lieutenants are also guilty of the same. They will rally around me on the issue. So with me, I am deployed here by the conference, and my supervisor is not me. It's the president. That's my supervisor. That's where I account. Are you with me? Now, so you can then say to the church elder that there is a situation without elaborating, but tell that you want to talk to the president about it, but I'll come back to you with the details. So the president must be the one now, after you have, of course, explain yourself to a better meeting. Now they will give me an opportunity to come and explain myself. Are you with me? Of course, there's evidence, there's everything. So that's how it works. Okay. So if it's a church member, yes, that's when you can come to me about that, and then we will deal with that matter. But if there is a child that is involved, that matter needs to go to the police. All right. Because before we start using this church terminology to protect one another. So when that matter is reported, it must also then be reported to the person that we will appoint, because we have a team here in the church that will drive this program of NE now for the whole year. It's not going to be a one-time event now, it's going to be a program. So that person that we will choose, and myself, we would be able now to deal with the matter together with the police that are dealing with the matter.
When a church handles the allegation internally, what does it do to the criminal case later?
So as a starting point, I am of the view that there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with the church handling the matters, as long as the manner in which the church addresses this matter does not interfere, undermine, or seek to compromise the legal processes out there. and does not seek to substitute the legal processes out there. So that's the first point that I just want to make, that we need to make sure that, or to be of the understanding that addressing it internally in the church does not cancel the obligation to report it to the authorities. The disadvantages or the dangers of dealing it internally in the church without going to the authorities is that this conduct may continue. We may have more people now being exposed to the risk of similar behavior, and it may then compromise the prospects of a real case later when it has to go to the authorities. Because remember, history is everything. I could have gone there whilst evidence was fresh and everything. Now it is tempered with, it is no longer there. It has lost its value and everything. So it's very important that we separate issues at church with the thing. You have to report in church so that church takes necessary steps. You have to report to the police so that the police do what they need to do. Because again, if you don't report in the church, we think all is well, and then we allow you to go to Pathfinder with our children and everything. So it should be a very red flag. You need to report to the church so that church takes preventative measures, precautionary measures, to ensure that this is addressed. So yeah, there are disadvantages if the church wants to sweep this thing under the carpet and then they don't go there.
As I'm listening to the panelists speaking, I'm just reminded that it's not necessarily in the church only, even in our workspaces. This is the same thing that, maybe it's a leader, a supervisor, a manager in the workspace. So it's there also, and I think it also needs to be addressed that how then do we deal with it? Because this is someone who's superior to you, and we're experiencing this. And again, I speak on behalf of the young people that they experience this quite a lot, and it's quite an eyesore.
So, premature forgiveness. What is the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation? And why does collapsing the two put one person in danger? So you spoke about reconciliation. So reconciliation, forgiveness, what's the difference?
The pastor, I think, will be best suited to deal with it, but my understanding is that forgiveness is almost like you are writing off within the offense. Reconciliation does not necessarily mean that I don't know, unless maybe I am swapping the two, because I can still reconcile with you when I am made to understand that you have to do what you have to do to protect your rights.
All right. So, we are Christians. We need to forgive. And this is an old problem that even during the times of Jesus, this was a big issue. Hence, the question was, how many times should I forgive? And 7 times? And Jesus says 70 times 7, which is 190. Can you imagine? It's 59th time now. I've been forgiving you. You're figuring what is it? Are you with me? So in other words, when something happens, no matter how evil your spouse has been to you, you've got to ask God to give you the heart to forgive. Are you with me? That's the first one. Now, forgiveness does not take away the responsibility that you need to take for what you have done. Am I making sense here? All right. Forgiveness does not mean, you have not done anything wrong. Forgiveness means, look, I understand that you are a human being, as much as I'm a human being. You are saved by grace as much as I'm saved by grace. But you know what? There is also power from the Lord that could have prevented this. But now, things are broken. I've got rules now for this, that, and the other. Take responsibility for your action. All right? So forgiveness does not take away the fact that the perpetrator must take responsibility for his actions. Okay? But of course, that forgiveness means we must also consider aggravating circumstances to that. What led to this? Could this have been avoided? If I had been quiet, if I did not respond in the way I responded, could this have happened? Are you with me? So there are considerations there. This is why I was saying reconciliation is not the first point. We must talk about the issue. What is it that we can do? But we must be open for forgiveness. But let me tell you quickly, forgiveness is a gift from the Lord. Don't go around and saying or thinking to yourself, we are one in my family, we have a gift of forgiveness. Hey, it's a gift from the Lord. Only Him who can enable you to forgive anybody.
Can I just say that, so in other words, the pastor is saying forgiveness does not equal to reconciliation. You can still forgive and choose to walk away for the sake of your peace and for your sanity. So sometimes people stay in that toxic relationship because the church will view me as someone who has failed to forgive. So it also has a reflection of my spirituality. I am not forgiving. I am vindictive. And they'll call me and label me with all sorts of names. So yes, forgiveness does not equal reconciliation.
Yeah. So maybe the last one on my part was to say when there are times where you must forgive and walk away because you are not safe at that point. Are you with me? Because church manual provides for them. Church manual does say you can walk away without divorcing, because you can't be in an environment that threatens your safety day in, day out. Says what I mean? Yes. Now, when that which threatened your life is no longer there, then it makes sense for you to go back where you're supposed to be.
Okay, last question. Someone is here and they're going to go back home to the abusive home, to a place that's not safe. What do they do? What are the steps that they need to follow? Legally, psychologically, what is the steps to go forward?
Okay, so the question is, how is your environment safe? That's the first question. Is your environment safe? If you know that every hour of the night when this person moves, you must be fresh to see why he is moving, then that's what environment you're supposed to be. So in other words, you can walk away today. Should you look for this? For your safety. Are you with me? We talk about your safety now. Yeah. Let's find a solution that will bring back safety in that environment. Because I would hate to see you in the hospital with tubes all around, and you tell me, but Pastor, you said, which is weird, hang in there. When I told you that I am not safe in that environment. Are you with me? All right. Because when you have walked away, we can still talk and find a solution up until we find safety, or until we remove that which causes danger in that environment. So that's what you can do. If it is not something that is not dangerous, we are not giving you license to say, hey, you can walk away. No, we're not giving you the license to walk away tonight, to go. No. We're saying, if you say, I am not safe for the following reasons, and these reasons can be attested to by the very person you are walking away from, then that makes sense. But we'll talk more about it. Thank you.
On a legal perspective?
Then that's where we are talking about protection order. What it is an order issued by the magistrate court actually interdicting the alleged perpetrator to stop perpetrating acts of abuse or violence. There may be intimidation, there may be no violence, whatever. Protection order also may contain a provision that this person may not enter certain premises where you are, or to contact you, or to attempt to do so. How do you go about getting it? You simply walk in the magistrate's court. When you get there, you ask for clerk of the court, and then you tell them that you are there to to request a protection order. Then he or she will give you some forms to fill in, and those forms are accompanied by an affidavit. In the affidavit, you will state what happened, when, by who, what's your relationship with them, and all those kind of things. Over and above that, you will be required to provide evidence if you have photographs, WhatsApp messages, maybe pictures of your bruises, pictures of a damaged property, medical reports showing your broken ribs, whatever the case will be. When that application is done, the clerk of the court then takes it to the magistrate to consider it and to make an outcome. The magistrate then looks into it. Remember, our legal system recognizes the principle of audi alteram partem, meaning every person before a decision is made against them, they must be heard, their side of the story must be heard. Now, the magistrate considers this thing and makes a decision to say, based on what I have heard, circumstances are such that I must issue a protection now, immediately, and then we need to set a date on which the people will come before, so that we decide whether we are making this thing final or not. There are circumstances where the magistrate may feel like, I don't have to issue it now. Let them come to court, let me hear them, and then I can make a decision there. For example, if maybe my complaint is that my wife is referring to me as a bitter half instead of better half, my life is not necessarily in danger at a particular point in time, so we may come at the later stage. Then this, whatever it is, if it's an interim order, then it's going to be served on the alleged perpetrator. If there is no order, but there is just a date of appearance as well, it is given on this perpetrator. Then on the date, we all appear, and then the magistrate hears all those kind of things. And then at the end of the day, after hearing both sides, then they issue a particular order. And that order is only valid and enforceable once served. So in other words, if I haven't received it, and then I happen to contact you, I'm not in violation of, I must be in receipt of it and know that I shouldn't be contacting you. So then it's issued, and then from there it's active. If then you break it, because you would have been served with what you call it, warrant of arrest as well. It's issued there. Should I then breach it, then you can contact police, and then the police then will execute and arrest. So that's just how it is. You pay nothing, you need no lawyer. It's quite a simple process. And if it involves a child, then when you go to the magistrate court, they will refer you to family court. Family court is a specialized branch or division of the magistrate court. So it's the same process. Yeah, I think that's all.
I just wanted also to add on the legal part. You correct me, my leader. Yeah, I was listening to him, and I'm saying, I'm just an ordinary person like me sitting here, and I'm hearing these big words, false lawyers, and sometimes I get threatened. Sometimes I get threatened with those big words. Now I'm involving lawyers, it's the court issue, and I see, oh no, I can't go through this whole process. So, us also as social workers, we have what we call Tshedza centers. These are support facilities that are integrated into in our public hospitals and clinics. And our nearest here in Midrand is the Tshedza hospital in Tshedza. So this they assist also with legal matters. Than for you to look for a private lawyer going through all this process, you just enter these facilities. I think the contacts are, you was given some cards, I'm not sure if they were handed out. There are contacts there on that card. Thank you.
Okay, I think for a young person who is in an abusive home or relationship living here today, one thing or two things that they can do is to start documenting anything and everything. Whatever has happened to you, even if it's on WhatsApp, save those messages, screenshots, emails, whatever, like the legal expert has said, that even pictures, so start documenting. And then also find a trusted source, someone that you can actually share with. Sometimes they say a problem shared is a problem half solved. So just talking about it to someone, it could be a family member or just a friend or someone in church, just talking about it will just help you to prepare you for the bigger battle that is ahead.
Like I said in the beginning, if there's an abuse of a child or suspected, it is our legal duty as church members to report that. You do not keep quiet. And this goes to protect the child more than anything. So, any closing remarks? Cliffhangers for the afternoon?
Just a follow-up on what you said. I just wanted, I feel that they have to cover this. Sometimes you are faced with a situation where someone comes to you and says, I am a victim. Yes, someone comes to you and says, I am a victim, but don't tell anyone. What do you do? My golden rule is first you stay calm. Then you say maybe, thank you that you have told me this. And the key issue here is confidentiality. We know that confidentiality should be maintained, but confidentiality has limits.
Yeah.
It has limits. Sometimes if the person faces immediate danger, then the reporting duties apply. What you do in such a situation, we don't want to use the word investigate. You don't investigate, but you look for things like, is the child at risk? Is there anyone who needs to be taken to hospital? Is there an issue that needs to be reported to the police? Thank you.
Yeah, well, from me, it's just to remind you that we all of us have legal, moral, and ethical responsibility to stand against abuse. Thank you.
Do the closing, so a summary, and then we'll close.
All of us are our brother's keeper. Firstly, you keep yourself so that you are able to keep somebody else. You keep yourself by making the right decisions, and that helps you to be able to make right decisions about other people. When you have a challenge, please talk to someone for solution.
In the announcement group chat, there is a contact list for all emergencies, and a link will be shared for any questions that you may have for the afternoon service. I can say